Okay. We're now moving on to 10.2 Representation Review 2024. We're now finally up to our final proposal. Welcome to Steffi and Dale Ofsosky. Thanks for coming in person today. Really good to see you. Yeah.
Right, kia ora koutou, through you, Madam Chair. This report asks Council to consider and resolve a final proposal for the representation arrangements for next year's elections. So I just wanted to quickly recap that 2 public briefings have already taken place in October on this topic, and we briefed Council on the formal consultation results. And also councillors were able to discuss some options, and these options have now shaped what is in the report, and they have shaped what is the recommendation in the report. And just to highlight that from the initial proposal, so the final proposal is largely the same, but there are 3 main amendments that have been made. One is the name of the Māori ward has been changed, so the Makaron has been removed from Kapiti. The second one is that the Ōtaki Waikanae ward boundary has reverted back to the status quo. So there are no changes to the boundary, and the boundary would again run down Te Horo Beach Road and School Road. And the last one is that the councillor appointments to community boards has been reduced. So the appointed councillors for each board would be 1, which mainly reduces the appointed councillors to the Paraparaumu Community Board, because up to now they had 2 out of the 3 councillors. Also, just to reiterate the recommendation, so the final proposal in the recommendation is compliant with the Local Electoral Act, and an automatic referral to the Local Government Commission wouldn't be needed. In terms of next steps, and the public speaker has alluded to that, Council is asked to resolve the final proposal today, and that must happen before the 3rd of November. So that's the Sunday. And then the decision will be publicly notified also by Sunday. We will do that tomorrow. I'm sure nobody wants to work Saturday, Sunday. And then the community will have the opportunity to oppose the final proposal. This means that anyone in the community, not just the submitters, would be able to oppose the final proposal of Council. If any opposition is received, that will be referred to the Local Government Commission by the 20th of December. And a hearing may take place next year, but the Local Government Commission would consider it before the 11th of April 2025. I'll take the rest of the report as read, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I'll go to questions, but before we kick off, I'll just check in with Councillor Bavanov whether you feel like your question that you asked during public speaking time has been addressed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually wouldn't hurt if we could have a staff response to that.
Do you want to reiterate what your question is?
Yeah, so if it went to the Electoral Commission, can any matters be considered?
So if you were to
Or someone was going to
resolve the final proposal in the recommendation, then it wouldn't automatically go to the Commission. But if an opposition is received, it would then go, yes. And the Local Government Commission can then consider all aspects again of the proposal, not just those that have been opposed to. So they can even look at process and everything. Yes.
So they do that without any input from the community, any input from the community, or does someone actually have to make a comment?
So that is at the Commission's discretion. They can call a hearing, and it can be online, it could be by Zoom, or it could be a physical hearing. It's at their discretion whether they call a hearing or not, or whether they consider it on the papers.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to add?
Dale has something to add?
Just straight from the Act, it also says, quote, Commission may make any inquiries that it considers appropriate. So yes, it can look at all the material that's been given, including all the submissions, objections, all that sort of thing, but it can also make any further inquiries. So it's completely at their discretion.
I'm just going to follow up to that. So if somebody makes an objection that's out of scope, for instance, that they don't want Māori wards, does it then have to go to the commission? Like say they say build a dam. Does it still have to go to the commission, even if it's irrelevant or out of scope?
So if it was completely irrelevant, like build a dam and has nothing to do with the representation review, no, then it would not go to the commission. It does have to be in relation to representation arrangements. And the decision on the Māori ward has been made, so that would not be relitigated by the commission. Did you want to?
Yes, we have had that question asked, and because the commission have advised us that we are not to make that call, it's for their decision only, that we are to forward any objection, even though we may consider it out of scope. Let the commission make that determination rather than the council.
But they then can decide that it's out of scope.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
Councillor Halliday?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Mine's really minor. It's just for the housekeeping. On the agenda on page 51, number 28, it gives reference to the Paraparau Umu Community Board having 2 appointed members. I just been wondering whether that needed to be updated in the report because we're only having 1.
So paragraph 28 is in reference to the initial proposal, and in the initial proposal, it was still
That's cool.
2.
No, that's
But
fine.
you are correct then for the final proposal in the recommendation that has been amended.
No,
yeah.
that was cool. I just saw that there and I was just making sure that was correct and just, little housekeeping thing, nothing too major.
Great. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just notwithstanding that build the dam is never irrelevant in any context, but I'm happy to move this.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I ask for a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hanford. Also, you can ask questions at any time. Right of introduction?
Yeah, just briefly, I think this final report encapsulates
So
a
you're
number.
moving just to confirm A through H,
Yes.
the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So it encapsulates the recommended changes that have come about through quite exhaustive discussions, both internally and with the community. So I think this is a sufficiently robust document to be going forward. So I'm very happy with it.
Councillor Pravanov.
Yes, I'd like to suggest that each of these recommendations are taken separately, please.
Okay, if an elected member requests that they're taken separately, then they are taken separately. So we'll do that. Okay. And we'll work out how finally we have to break it down as we go along. Councillor Hanford?
Yeah, just wanted to thank staff and also thanks Dale for all of your mahi on this, and also to the comms team for the engagement, the quite extensive engagement process, the webinars, the drop-in sessions that were hosted, and also those who participated in that through making a submission or just contributing their thoughts. And also exciting for the Emerald Glen residents who for a long time have been advocating to be back part of the Paikakiriki Community Board. So no mai, haere mai, part of the ward, and also now the community board. I know John Andrews, although he's not here, will be hopefully having a bit of a party tonight. He's been advocating for this for a long time.
Right. Councillor Halliday.
Yep, and I just wanted to again commend a robust process here. But just also wanted to note that these things normally cost around 240,000. Ours is going to come in at about 160. So it's been quite a cost-effective process compared to the usual process as such. Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out in the coming year as such as well. But I'm more than comfortable that we're in the right space with regards to where we're moving forward.
Glenn Olsen?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, apologies. I wasn't at the workshop last week, or the week before, whenever it was. But there's just a couple of comments I want to make. And so with what's been proposed, I actually do support reducing PAPRAM to 1 elected member. And my reasoning behind that is I do feel community boards should be focused on members who have been elected by the community to be on the community board. And when you have it loaded with councillors, it changes that. But the comment I would have, and with PAPRAM having a community board member who does not reside within the PAPRAM ward, what I would say, and the reason I'm saying this is I noticed the bit where it says or the Kapekos Murray ward, is that when you have members on the board who reside outside of your area, it's very, very hard to get them engaged. So for an example, imagine if the, let's say, I'll use the Murray ward here, but it could be district as well if they were there. But let's say if you have your community board in Otaki and you have your councillor from Paikock, you know, it's for the community. How does that look? You know, the community board should really be people who reside within the community, because otherwise it's very, very difficult to get them engaged in doing anything within their community, because they're not actually part of the community. So that's the comment that I would have on that. The other comment I was going to say is, you know, for PAPRAM as well, which could work, and this is more for a comment for staff than anyone else, because we don't know who's going to be here next triennium, but a lot of the staff will be, is what could work really well in PAPRAM is if you do have 3 councillors, is actually to rotate them every year and just rotate each year to move on to another councillor. I think that would work really well and give good representation to the community board. So that's, yeah, what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, food for thought when the next council's doing its appointments. Absolutely. Have you got a question, or you're waiting for your right of reply? 'Cause we've
No,
got,
the question is in terms of the recommendations A through H, just to expedite the process. I mean, there's been a request to do them one at a time, but is there a specific?
Shall we just
one?
get through debate
Yep.
and through your right of reply, and then we'll talk about how we'll deal with that. We'll have a look at them. I'll have a look at them in the meantime. Simon Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to comment on Mr. Olsen's comment, I'd endorse what he says. Also like to make the observation that because of the changing the boundaries, that Cam Butler is living across the road and outside of the Otaki ward officially, and so so that occasion that community board members should actually reside within the ward may not be a hard and fast rule. Yeah, just an observation. Thank you, ma'am. Chair.
Right. Right of reply?
Just to reiterate what I said, I think this is a terrific document. So I can leave it at that. It's just in terms of those recommendations, the question would be is if there is one specific from A to H that wants to be singled out, if we take the rest as a block, or is it? So the current recommendation is to take them one at a time, I understand. So
Yeah,
I'm happy
so-
to do that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Councillor Providoff, is there one in particular that would you like us just to go through them one at a time?
Thank you, Madam Chair. B3 is the one that the rest I'm happy to take as a block.
Okay, so we'll go A and B, B1 and B2, just so we're doing them in order. So we've got A, A1, A2, and B1 and B2. That's been moved and seconded by Councillor Wilson. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Hanford. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, that's carried. So,
I'll move B3.
yeah, so we have B3 moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? We've got, okay. So now we'll go C, D, E, F, G, H. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Hopefully nobody finds it too objectionable. It's been a really fantastic process. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we have 10.3, the Waikanai Property Fund. Morag. And Brendan. Waikanai things are always the most important. What do you mean? Okay, I'll pass it over to Morag and Brendan. Thank you.
Atia Atamaria koutou. So just here to talk about the Waikanai Property Fund. I'll just give a quick background of how we've got to this point and then just quickly run through the options and then have some discussion. So previously a recommendation came up from Waikanai Community Board to use some of the funding towards the Rikurangi Playground, which Council approved in July. On the 23rd of July, you were given a briefing about that as well. And the history of the Waikanai Property Fund. We've gone back to the Waikanai Community Board on the 20th of August and presented 3 potential options, none of which they supported, and they gave some direction about other areas of interest, which we then looked into and went back on the 24th of September and presented more options. And so option A in this report is the option that is supported by the Waikanai Community Board. However, the decision delegation sits with council, which is why we are back here. A little update about the Waikanai public toilets, just to note that these have been completed. However, they weren't budgeted for. So if you would like to support putting funding from the Waikanai Property Fund towards that, that could still go to support the completion of that. I would also note, as I promised the Waikanai Community Board, that I would highlight that they did not support the Waikanai public toilet project option. They were strongly against it at both of the hui that we attended. So there are 4 options on the table, and there's 154,000 capex remaining in the fund. Option D, if that is preferred, option C, sorry, if that is preferred, we could talk through what funding amounts you would actually like to assign to those projects. However, otherwise we could just have a conversation and understand which option you may like and answer questions.
Okay, we'll do questions first. Councillor Cooper.
So option A, which is recommended, can you just outline the potential OPEX and renewal costs envisaged? Because it's highlighted as a risk. So what sort of money are we tying ourselves into?
Oh, it's probably a bit difficult to answer that for all 3, but I think from the playground point of view,
Yeah.
it'll be between 10 and 15 per year.
1,000?
No,
Is that in
Yeah.
budget?
No, that's not budgeted for.
So will something somewhere else have to miss out?
Potentially, yeah. So we have a number of playgrounds across the network. So where the tie-up is just keeping the playground up to date. There's fill in terms of bark that we replenish every year. So it's not budgeted for. So we'll have to find that money in future years.
In terms of that's OPEX, in terms of the renewal costs, what's the lifespan and what would be the cost of replacing it?
The cost of the playground equipment this time around, I believe off the top of my head, sorry, is about $40,000. So obviously renewal, I think they last 10 to 15 years approximately. Please don't quote me on that later. But so it'd have to be built into the budget. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Coe.
Yeah, look, I'm just wondering if there's scope for some of this money to be used in conjunction with the public art panel. So we had a meeting of the public art panel just very recently looking at our long-term plan for what we do with public art. And a decision was reached to focus in on the Waikanai Town Centre and to look at integrating some art and, we've got the library, we've got Mahara, we've got the pop-up, shops and so on the main road. But, connecting all those with some really magnificent public art and maybe even having an installation of some kind. Now, is this fund available for something like that? And could we, join these two things up? Because the public art panel has very little money, very little discretionary funds. And it seems to me like a golden opportunity to do something really fantastic there by joining those two things up. So is that is that something that's within the scope of the fund to look at?
If it was happening on council property
Yes.
in Waikanai,
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
then, and it was capital, then it would be within the scope of the fund. It was a previous option in terms of, I guess, one of the wider ones that we put in there in terms of integration and activation of Mahara Place. This wasn't supported by the Waikanai Community Board, but in option A, there is one about the improvement of community amenities.
Yeah.
At both
So it could fit within
Waimea
that.
and the Waikanai
Yeah.
Township. So it could potentially fit within that, if that
Right.
was to do with, I guess, beautifying those two areas.
Right. So that's the conversation the public art panel needs to have with the Waikanai Community Board or with council or who?
I think the Waikanai, if this was an option that went
Yeah.
ahead, then that conversation could be had with the Waikanai Community Board alongside council officers. Yes.
Right, because I think we've got some great ideas for what could be done. So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
To me, it would make sense to share them with the Waikanai Community Board, but we in
Yeah.
fact have Mr. Mansell up next, so maybe he could provide a comment on whether they'd be willing to enter into such discussions alongside his question.
My question was rather stunned, 15 to 20,000, $10 to $15,000 per year to maintain a playground. How many playgrounds have we got in the district that are having that much spent on them every year?
I can't say how many we have being spent every year, but this will be our 50th playground. I know that. Yeah. Some don't have bark though. There are other options in terms of they can use the matting, which then doesn't need to be renewed as often, but obviously is more expensive. And so then when it is renewed, there is a higher cost.
And if I was going to be really facetious to Councillor Cooper, I might suggest that what's been spent at McLean Park would be hugely in excess of that, to probably the detriment of all other playgrounds in the district. But I won't say that because that would be confrontational. And the other point, well, I'm not making points at the moment, but public art in the Waikanai Township would probably meet our desires to improve the amenity value of our main centres.
So Brendan, let's put that on the back burner that we like.
In which case,
If they're progressing that work in Waikanai Town Centre and there's an artistic element, make sure
Yeah.
to involve the public art panel
Yeah.
and the Waikanai Community Board together with that.
in which case you probably need as a council to be voting for option A, because if you vote for option B, that extinguishes the entire amount of money available.
Okay, sneaking into debate there.
There, sorry.
But I won't strike it from the record because I don't have that ability. Councillor Halliday?
But nice thought, but like the McLean Park one. Just want clarity on a couple of things. So when this, in relation to option A, should we say, once a playground is completed by the Rakirangi residents, it's being vested into council, is it? Yeah, okay, just wanted some clarity on that, that was all. And the other thing was, do I read that the difference of 69,000 needs to be spent this financial year? Is that correct?
No, it doesn't need to be spent this financial year. This fund has been sitting there for a long time unused.
Yeah.
And there's a cost associated with kind of the ongoing, like reporting on it, etc. So the recommendation from staff, because this came to light about the use of this fund and council's already looked or has agreed to spend part of it, was to actually look at other options, utilise them, and then disestablish the fund within this financial year.
So that's a preference.
Yes, that is a
Yeah,
preference.
okay,
yes.
that's cool. Thank you for that.
Councillor Wilson.
Actually, I just want to move this and just a clarification that we wouldn't have to go to option D to encapsulate the thinking of Comrade Co. So that can be covered off by A.
Yes, that can, yes.
So I'm moving A.
So you're moving recommendations A, B, and C with option B1, option A.
Yeah.
Nailed it. I'll second it.
That's the alphabet soup
Yeah,
option.
happy for the Waikanae Community Board to make the final decision on what's important to them.
Yeah.
Sneaking into debate there without your right of introduction. But I'll just finish off with questions before I give you your right of introduction. Councillor Kirby.
Just a question, probably of clarity of information. So my understanding from our previous debate around the playground at Rekirangi was that the total project cost was $52,000 that was submitted to us, of which we supported it with 35, and the Residents Association was adding 15. We're now adding another 25. Is there an increase of scope of that project? Because that, to my calculations, puts the total project cost up to in the region of $77,000 on that playground.
So within, if you look back at the original one, what is excluded within there is earthworks and the safety flooring. So that 25,000 is on top of that. It wasn't included in the quotes that they received and put forward.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So the report states that the money is to be spent on improvements on council-owned property. Is the land that the Rekirangi playground is located on, is that council-owned property or is it DOC property?
So this conversation was had at the previous council, Hui, and in the briefing. So it is DOC, but it's vested in us and it technically can be good to go, which is why you've agreed to fund the playground equipment already.
Okay, thank you. My second question is in relation to what's been suggested about public arts panel. I can't actually see how it potentially would fit into option A.
So just in terms of improvement of community amenities, so that's council property in both of those spaces within the township and Waimea Domain. Any council-owned property would be considered a community amenity, and therefore we could look to work with the public art panel in terms of improving those spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, right of introduction.
Right, yeah, so just moving this, and I think option A encapsulates the view of the community board. Stand to be corrected. Yep, but I think that's that was reflects what the community board thinking is. As far as playground's concerned, you could go back to the old days of just putting down a huge concrete pad and let natural selection take place. But we live in a different environment, which is good. Yeah, so just yeah, there's been a lot of round the houses with this stuff, and I think we've landed in a pretty good area.
Okay, I take a little bit of exception to your comment around concrete pads. My auntie Dame Elizabeth Hannon, who was Deputy Mayor of Dunedin, wrote a seminal work called Playgrounds and Play, which led to the installment of safety servicing in playgrounds across the country, which saves lives and reduces injury amongst our tamariki. So definitely no concrete pads to be seen. Thank you. Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So I suppose and you've heard this before and I'm going to say it again. So I suppose I have some concerns around this money being allocated. It's been sitting there for a while. And I suppose my concerns are based around how a lot of these suggestions have come up. So at the community board, basically suggestions were asked for. And so they were tabled on the night. And to me, this is, for some areas of our community and for some organisations, this is a reasonable amount of money. And to me, our community should be asked about how this money is being spent, and that has not happened. to me, there's no need to necessarily, I personally think that is how we should go about doing this. So yeah, so my preference is actually option D. Thank you.
Okay, so if this motion fails, then we'll go back and look at that again. So for now, Councillor Cooper.
Oh, yeah, but I don't like the idea of projects that create more OPEX. More OPEX means more ratepayer pressure, and albeit it's only 10 to 15,000 per year, but it's 10 to 15,000 a year straight out of the rate stack. We're under immense pressure to stay within our limits we've set in our LTP, an annual plan, and I suspect we may be looking at cutting service levels in some areas to meet our 7%. So I'm not a fan of, we're going to workshop in the next month of how to do that, and here we are adding OPEX. So I don't particularly have an issue with CapEx and that fund being spent, but I'm not supporting adding OPEX at this time when we've got over 50 parks and some very good parks in the Waikanae, a short distance from there in the Waikanae area. So I'd prefer D, but that's me. Thank you.
Mr. Mansell.
Thank you. A special thanks to Morag, because she turned up to a meeting, had to wait for a while to be heard, and then was almost attacked. But she took it very well. So thank you very much. And thank you for putting our point of view across. Just a couple of points. Council took over this project from the Rikarangi, or the playground project from Rikarangi, and it had to meet council's standards, and that's where the extra 25,000 came from. The good people of Rikarangi were prepared to let their children crash to the ground in the natural selection way of thinking. To Councillor Cooper's point of view, there is a council policy that requires there is a playground within 400 metres of properties. There's nothing in Rikarangi. If you want to take your child to the playground, you would need to drive or put them on their horse or their bicycle. And it's probably to the one at the top of Elizabeth Street, probably 3 or 4 kilometres. So this is only meeting a council obligation. That's my other point down here. That a playground is a core responsibility. You could get rid of some of the other fluffy stuff that council do before you got rid of playgrounds. And in terms of option A, the Waikanae Court resurfacing popped up as something that Community Board member Begovic was wanting, and then all of a sudden it grew to both lots of Waikanae courts, which were badly in need of resurfacing, and we were very happy that both the Memorial Hall and the beach court was going to be done. So thank you to the staff for bringing that Waikanae Memorial Hall, especially one, to us. And I think that meets a need from the Waikanae netball community who want courts up there to play. I'm going to talk about the toilets, because the toilets are finished, and this is really just covering somebody's overspend or inability to plan properly or whatever. And they think, oh my goodness, we've got to find some money from somewhere. Well, don't find it from us. Oh, Sean's rushing to the front. He wants to counter that. So that's why we were so against the toilets, because the project had started, it almost finished, it has finished now. They'll probably have a celebration opening and cutting the first ribbon and all that sort of thing. But this money needed to be spent. It had been sitting on the books. I went back to, well, I think 2011, I found it. The oldest set of accounts I could find, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. So option D is not really an option unless you've got some better ideas. Option A, get something done in Waikanae. And for so long we have felt that we have missed out. So let's get on and do it. And I ask you to please do option A so we can get rid of it, spend it, have fun, do good things. What we were voted in for. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's my understanding that the toilet issue and the payment for that is around our removing funds from our CapEx projects as part of our infrastructure and financial strategy. Would that be right, Sean? Yep. So it's, well, that's why. And it just means we won't do something somewhere else. That's the meaning of the budget isn't there for it. Councillor Halliday?
Put a $2 coin slot in the toilets. Might money back pretty quick, I'm sure. Just saying. Taking on board taking on board what Councillor Cooper said, I appreciate what he's saying, but from my perspective, this is going to be vested anyway. This is going to be vested anyway. No matter what happens, this is coming to council. But it does open up a wider question, though, around the amount of parks that we do have and whether we should be potentially looking at retiring some of them, which I'm sure will be part of the conversation we have coming up with regards to what we're going to be putting lines through and that sort of scenario as such. Pretty much, well, to me, this is a community board decision. And, you know, we are talking about giving more autonomy to community boards. So I'm supporting option A because of that. That seems to have been a thought through process with regards to this, the 69,000. Liz, I think you'll be in there pretty quick putting an application in and that sort of stuff. I've got one tucked up my sleeve as well for something else. And that to me is a good process, but good to see the fund being utilised and the money going into the community sooner rather than later after it's been sitting there for a while.
Councillor Pravanov, you've already contributed to debate. Did you have something procedural to?
I was just going to say that the
Request?
toilets were removed at no cost to council.
Thanks for that clarification. So I'll move these separately just in case we have a disagreement around B. So we're moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded from the chair, that council note the projects that are supported by the Waikanae Community Board for use of funding from the Property Fund. Just read that word for word. All in favour? Aye. Against? So B, that council approve the use of funding from the Waikanae Property Fund in accordance with option A. All in favour? Aye. Against? Okay, we've got a division requested for B. It was exercised already, wasn't it? Oh, sorry. Oops. Right. It's not often I miss that, sorry. My apologies, Councillor Wilson. All those who voted for, please raise your hands.
Thank you. Your worship. Deputy Mayor Kirby. Halliday. Brentford. Coe. Warwick. And Wilson. Thank you. And those against, Pravanov and Cooper. Thank you.
That's carried. So C, that council approve the disestablishment of the Waikanae Property Fund following the full utilisation of funding as agreed through recommendation B. All in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. Not there. What a can of worms you uncovered there, Mr. Mansell. But put to good use. Now we have report committees from committees and subcommittees. This is,
Actually, it should be community boards. Sorry. It's the community boards.
oh yes, so it should. Page 165. From community boards.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. We've just got 3 recommendations from the Waikanae Community Board. They've just asked, 2 of them are already actually in progress with staff, and there's a 3rd one to do with the Waikanae Gymnastics Club, where it's been pointed out the long-term plan they weren't put in the category and the fees did not go up. So we're unable to take any action on that one, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Metzel, would you like to say anything before we go to questions?
The 3 recommendations, as noted, there are 2 of them are already happening, and that's really good because we've had numerous people come to us, one about the Waimanu lagoons and the weir in there, $1 million weir that doesn't seem to have functioned properly, and the resulting flooding issues because of that. The gymnastics club is sort of one of many clubs that we have come to us who are crying poverty and requesting money to pay for use of all facilities that the council owns. So we're sort of taking money with one hand and giving it out with the other, or it just seems like a stupid merry-go-round. And these ones in particular, we suggested that perhaps they should be categorised in a different way. Obviously they can't. And the pop-up space is a really good idea, but let's get on with it. It seems difficult to do anything quickly in council, but if you're putting some relocatable containers, which have been jazzed up and by all accounts were ordered and almost in here, I'm not sure if Darren can confirm that or not, but to put something like that onto a space and create something a bit vibrant that will enhance and complement the existing offer that we have there can only be a good thing, which is why we asked for it to happen in the build up to Christmas. But if that's being worked on, then so be it. Whether it makes it by the 1st of December, I don't know. So no questions, just a lot of pleading and
That's some good clarification there. Thank you. Councillor Pravanov?
Yeah, thank you. Just following up on the Waimanu Lagoon weir situation, I note in the discussion in 8 that council officers are going to be liaising with the focus group, the nearby focus group. I'm just wondering why there's no mention of the community board there, and whether or not they would be coming along to the community board to give a report about, I suppose, the issues there and what investigative work is actually planned. That's on page 167.
Yes, I guess the question is, following meeting with the representatives of the Waikanae Lagoon Focus Group, what is the plan for updating the community board?
Correct.
And keeping them in the loop?
Yes.
I guess that question is for Brendan. Or Sean? Sean. Toss a coin. This is right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we'd be more than happy to do that. The recommendation was, though, to work with the representatives from that focus group. So that's what we're currently doing. But happy to come back to the board with the outcome of that, or an update in terms of process issues. Possibly would need to be now in the new year, I think, in terms of timing, but no problem.
Sounds good. Anything further, Councillor Pravanov?
No, thank you.
Great. Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, just noting that the recommendations are just noting recommendations, but in relation to the Waikanae pop-up space, which got a mention, that space is actually looking increasingly third world by the day. There doesn't appear to have been any progress at all. There's regress. It just looks way worse than it used to look 2 weeks ago, and that looked worse than it did 2 weeks earlier. So the 1st of November is starting to look, the 1st of December is starting to look like a Disneyland option. So I don't know who's doing that or any update, but it hasn't come back to the community board. There is a community board meeting coming up soon. It'd be really good to get an update about the timetable. So if there is a realistic expectation that something is going to happen, then great. If it looks like it's being delayed, then I'm prepared to get the paint and the roller out and get rid of the graffiti on the wall, which is just tagging. It's just awful. It's not like it's art or anything. But it's making that space look like this is where you come to do crazy stuff. So we need an update on that. And just
Hang on a minute. We've got, do you want to, if you're moving on to a different topic, we have a response to that?
Oh,
Because
yep,
it is
yep.
questions at the moment.
Yep, cool.
So in terms of the pop-up space, we've been working through the process of getting the necessary consents for that space. And so that's been a process of working with the budding consents team. We will be able to come and provide an update to you at the next, happy to come and provide an update at the next Waikanae Community Board meeting in terms of timeframes and next steps in terms of that. But we are still moving through that process.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
And in terms of activity, I think it might be being used as a bit of a holding site for some wider town centre works at the moment, but I'll check in terms of what's going on with the site in terms of usage.
Yeah. Yeah, it currently looks pretty narrow and there's it's mind you, all the recent rain has highlighted what the drainage issues might be going forward. So it's a bit of a swimming pool as well. And just my last piece, because I was going to mention this earlier actually, but it seems an appropriate place to do it. Just in terms of concreting and playgrounds and the like, I don't know what the permanent surface for that area is planned to be, but your aunt would probably do backflips over the skate park, which is a massive concrete bowl for people to land on after flipping. So I'm just wondering if skate parks we're gonna have to put in some kind of rubber surface for them, which makes skating very interesting.
If you could create something that wheels could roll along that was a good surface for landing on, I think you could make millions, Nigel.
Yeah, and just lastly, on the Waimanu lagoons, this will come back to the community board, but my understanding is that the community board doesn't currently have a person on that focus group. I think there was some, that was the case. So yeah, so there was some contention around the focus group itself and the value of it, etc. But there have been some very live issues raised around that, including the need for bollards to protect the areas going in there. So we can, I don't know, we have a discussion about that offline is what it's been so far, but some of the land around Waimanu Lagoon is absolutely getting destroyed by cars parking in there. There's 87 bollards there at the moment, and these three areas in particular are just getting crucified. So I'll raise that. And the last bit is the Waikanae Gymnastics Club, which in my personal view should be provided free to the gymnastics club, but I know there's a space between free and what they're currently being charged. But according to this, does this mean that it can't mean that we're never going to have a discussion around these things. So we're just saying that we're not having that discussion now, because it just says a review will not be conducted as a result. But at some stage, presumably, these are very live. As Richard's pointed out, there's a bit of a money go round at the moment. So, and that money go round actually costs money to administer. So there's a real cost about that. And so I'd hope that we, Mike Mendonca, who was here prior, we actually started to initiate some discussions around this before he fled to Porirua. So I'd really like it if we are able to reinvigorate those conversations at some stage. Yeah.
Sean?
Absolutely, that's one of the areas that we'll be bringing back to you as part of the annual plan conversation. Obviously, part of that fees and charges conversation, halls are a big element of that in terms of the current cost recovery model that we have. So we're bringing all of that back as part of those considerations through that process.
I'm just going to respond to something that you said. So there's a difference between noting a recommendation and noting an action that's happening as a result. Councillor Cooper? Sorry, Bede. I'll come to you next.
I won't take long. Just a quick question. I see in relation to the Waikanae Weir, Mana Whenua have not been consulted in relation to the report. That particularly that weir is a traditional food gathering area. I think Waikanae translates to something like grey mullet or water mullet. Certainly it was one of the best mullet fisheries in New Zealand prior to the draining of those swamps through there. So is it just they've been consulted, and I would have thought Mana Whenua would be highly interested in that traditional area. Is it they have not been consulted in the report, or they've been consulted, or is it? Yeah, can you explain that? Someone?
Sure.
Are
So that relates to the report in its entirety. So that report back from standing committees and community boards, they haven't been consulted on as part of the preparation of that report. At the moment, we're looking at doing the investigation around what's actually happening with the Waimane Lagoon. Once we certainly will be consulting with them if there is a need to either do some major works in that area, look at changing its operations or anything like that. So yeah, so that would be where we would engage with Mana Whenua in terms of that particular project. The reference is just the report as a whole. We haven't consulted with them in terms of that element of it.
Okay, thank you. It's a good white baiting spot too. You're not allowed to white bait there. It's got 2 white pegs. Unless you've got customary, you can fish, but you can't. Yeah, not.
Mr. Lorisi?
All right, just in support of money go rounds, Councillor Wilson, they can also grow money, but that's not on topic. Just a quick question. This is probably for Mr. Grant. Just curious in terms of the pop-up space, whether Waikanae Business Association is part of the discussions around the use of that.
Yes, they've been part of the discussions, and we're part of the group that we consulted on the need for the space.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll look for a mover for A through C. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Warwick. Vote of introduction. Any further debate? All in favour? Aye, it's carried. Thank you. 10.5, amendments to council delegations to staff. Page 169 of the agendas.
Kia ora koutou, through you, Madam Chair. I'll largely take this paper as read. Just note that most of the changes proposed are in relation to the recent change proposal that was finalised. So they're positional changes that are required to reflect changes to titles, new management lines, etc. There are also some minor changes to reflect an internal review of the Local Government Rating Act delegations. There was an issue that popped up in relation to Queensland District Council. So we just had a look to make sure that our delegations were as clear as they could be, which is part of our continuous improvement, looking and reviewing where issues pop up. And so that's it. Happy to take any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
Just one. Yeah, it's just an assumption on my part, but given the new recently announced management structure, I take it that the delegations were kind of designed to fit that new model, right?
Precisely. So there's quite a bit of work that has gone in. Actually, I should say thanks to Sarah Harding and my team, who's been leading a lot of that administrative work. around the delegations, but yes, yeah. So we've made some tweaks to reflect the new structure.
Yeah, so well done on that, because I've seen organisations that haven't done it that way and then found out later that, oops.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is good.
Councillor Kirby.
Just a short question for me also. I note there's quite a few staff that have got added RMA delegations. The assumption I'm making is they will receive training, so they know what they're being delegated.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
And would you like to move these, Councillor Kirby? Seconded by Councillor Warwick. I'll just pull them up so I make sure I've got them here. So we've got A and B here. Adopts the amended sections to council delegations, chief executive, etc., and that council adopts the amended RMA 1991 delegations, etc. Right of introduction. Waived. Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to say, when these come up as such, these particular delegations, from my end, this is a business as usual thing. A couple of the key questions are really, really important, but I just don't want staff to feel like that this information isn't looked over or read through or anything like that at all, because we don't comment on it a heck of a lot. And that sort of stuff, you guys are all over this, and that sort of stuff, so we'll touch base on bits and pieces. But and as Nigel pointed out, other places have been caught out because they're not on top of this. So it's muchly appreciated that you are. Thank you.
Yeah, and really appreciate that benchmarking exercise too, to make sure that we're top of our game. I'll put those recommendations, all in favour, aye, against, carried. Thank you. 10.6, proposed road stopping and taking Cam Waterfall Road, Paraparaumu. I know this road well. Can't wait for it to be stopped. Okay, I'll pass over to staff to introduce this report. I think
Kia
it
ora.
should be fairly simple.
Kia ora, thank you. Proposing to take this as read and happy to answer any questions. I think it's a good opportunity to address some current tidy ups and a chance to progress this forward.
Great, so everybody's got a clear idea of what we're talking about and where it is? In all seriousness? It's a road that's become redundant post other road improvements. Was always dangerous, not needed anymore. Councillor Wilson?
Just in terms of negotiating the terms of sale under E2, what's the anticipated cost benefit around that?
So we're expecting the applicant to wear the majority of the costs, if not all of the costs.
All right, okay, cool.
So we've got a number of recommendations here, A through E, and all their various parts, spreading from page 192 to 193 of the agenda. Who's happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Halliday, unless you're wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, I did actually.
Were you
Sorry, Madam
seconded
Chair.
as well? Just
Happy
so-
to second.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's just a clarity
Okay.
thing.
But still ask your question.
The question, look, we had the table options for decision. Option A recommended in previous reports. That recommendation's been referred to in the recommendations, if you like, but I just didn't. It wasn't referred to in these recommendations. I think what was just talked to was what was going to be done. So if you like, the option was listed. Just from a consistency perspective, I just thought it was just important to, but I just got a bit confused with regards. We've got option A here. I was looking for option A being part of the recommendations. It's not in there, but I'm picking that just the wording's been taken out of option A and put in the recommendations. Yeah, sorry, it's just a little thing, but just something to note as such.
Okay. Do you require a response to that?
No.
Okay. I'll just wait for the mover to come back to the table. Right of introduction? Waived. Any further debate? So that's been moved by councillor Wilson, seconded by councillor Halliday. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Thank you. We've already covered off item 10.7. So now we move on to item 11. Confirmation of minutes. We've got two lots of minutes, 24th and 26th September. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by councillor Wilson. Any discussion around those? All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Who will move us into public excluded? Councillor Halliday? And councillor Wilson won't. So moved by councillor Halliday, seconded by councillor Pravanov. All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried.